Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Magic in the Ordinary, where we talk about the magical things in our everyday life. And today, I'd like to talk about Lent. And this might sound kind of funny to people because I don't think magical and Lent always go in the same sentence. So, like, the magic of Lent doesn't seem to quite like flow typically. But I wanted to talk about this anyways because I do think it can be just this really fruitful, rich, beautiful time where you can grow a lot. And I think that that's something worth sharing on this kind of podcast. So I want to look at what it is, kind of when is it, and then look at some pillars and stuff and talk about just how awesome it is. Before we start, let's back up. First of all, what is Lent for anyone wondering about what that might be? And I think a lot of us know what Lent is, but just to back up, it is a practice that started in really like early 300s, maybe before then. So it's something that Christians have been doing a really long time, this time of fasting and prayer up until Easter. I'd like to invite anybody watching this to consider thinking about things to do for Lent. It's a beautiful tradition. And I know that it's obviously a really old tradition, so there's a lot of cultures and different elements of that. So a lot of people associate with fish fries or Stations of the Cross or different traditions around the globe, depending on where you're from, what your background is. There's going to be different traditions that typically come with that. So I know that there's a ton of richness, and I think that's partly what makes this season so beautiful and so exciting is kind of looking at how do you want to participate in this. But I think also today I want to bring some ideas of how to approach Lent, maybe specifically as an artist, as a creative person, but this can be for anybody. So I want to talk about prayer first of all, and think about like what are some ways we can enter deeper into prayer. And what is prayer? I guess is just this kind of being with God and talking with God. And so a couple ideas I had was, first of all, draw. And this might sound kind of crazy, like how is that a prayer? But I have been blown away finding more and more times that like there is this richness when you draw during prayer, when you paint, when you make that a prayer, when it's very intentionally focused and trying to it's such a form of communication. This is a way to speak with God. This is a way to honor God. And actually, last Lent, I don't know if you can see all these um, drawings up here. This was my Lenten resolution last year, is I told myself I was going to draw these biblical scenes of Christ's passion and his death. And that was partly what I did for Lent. And it was one of the toughest things I've ever given myself to do. And it was awesome. I felt like I'd meditated on the scriptures in a whole new way. It was very difficult, but it was also very beautiful and yeah, just incredible. So drawing, I've been really surprised and blessed by how that can actually really be a cool Lenten activity to participate in. So painting, drawing. I've seen writers do poetry every day during Lent, which looks amazing. Looks very challenging to me, but also really great. So that idea of communicating with God through the medium that you work with, I think is awesome. The other idea is spend time in beauty. So make a pilgrimage of sorts to some place that's really beautiful. This could be a church that you know has some gorgeous art, but also like, take time to walk in nature. This is something that I've seen people do in the past is like actually just going outside to a really nice park and walking and being present in that moment is also just this way of opening your heart to prayer in a new way, which I think is really beautiful and can be really fruitful. Here in Minnesota, it's like a little freezing outside. So maybe walk with caution if you're going to go to a nature thing, but it's also gorgeous out. So still a great idea. And then finally, I wanted to give a book recommendation that I think is fantastic if you are an artist, and that is a book called God is Beauty. It was actually written by Carol Wojtyla, later known as John Paul II, Pope John Paul II, Saint Pope John Paul II. And it's written as a retreat for artists. So it's beautifully written. The points are so good, and it's geared. It was written to be. The retreat was given during Holy Week of Lent, so it was given during Lent for artists, and it feels so timely still. It's fantastic. So if you're looking for a really solid read, to just deepen that prayer journey, I would recommend God is Beauty. It's put on by Theology of the Body Institute, I think. I think that's which one it is. So Fantastic. So that's some ideas for maybe prayer during Lent. What about fasting? Now, fasting is kind of, I think, first of all, it's great. Fasting is such a powerful, when we think fasting, I think often we think of food first off, giving up something that we would rather eat that we don't eat during this time. And I do think that that's pretty fantastic because it acknowledges our humanity, our frailty, and it helps us just kind of get a little bit more grounded. A lot of people find that they're more disciplined. They've got this inner strength afterwards from that fasting, and that's fantastic. But I would also caveat with saying there's a lot of people around us now who have eating disorders, and fasting from food can trigger that again, and it can be hard. So to be really careful around fasting, I guess, is something I'm kind of aware of that not everyone, this isn't great for everybody. And it's also what is it, in our kind of hustle culture and diet culture, it can have this kind of weird overtone of like, I'm not eating sugar this Lent, and it's this kind of almost harsh, vindictive mentality of like cutting this all off. And I think that when we do fast, it should be with this attitude of like, I'm understanding my humanity, my frailty, and it's humble and grateful for the food we do have, and just like prayerful, I guess, and not get into this spiral, into this, yeah, I'm cutting myself off of sugar in a mean way. It's this sense of I'm really grateful for sugar, and I want to remember that I'm, frail. I don't know, different attitude, I guess. So that's one thing I wanted to think about with food. So food is still obviously an idea. If, you want to give up chocolate or anything like that, that's great. But there's definitely other things as well that you can pass from. So, social media is a huge one. So not saying you can't have a certain food, but saying you have to only eat it in moderation. Like I think it's at Lay's chips where it's like you can't just eat one. It's like, what if that's your Lenten resolution? And so like people will say, oh, I can only have one cookie and then I'm done. And they've said that that's actually so much harder because it's easy to cut it off completely and be like, I can't touch it, but just eating one and then stopping and just having that self-control to do things in moderation can be really hard, but I think it's a great idea. You can also do that with social media. Like if you're used to scrolling for hours, you can be like, I set my timer and I only get 10 minutes. And that's also super tough. So I guess like you try at your own discretion. But I think that I have tried those before in the past in Lent. Like I think I did the social media one, and I really liked it because it felt like you weren't like cutting yourself off from the world, but then you were connecting a little bit, but you were keeping it really in its place, and it did feel like a huge sacrifice, and it was really reframing. So that was great. Another idea I like for artists is going grayscale on your phone. I mean, we love color, and just having this phone grayscale, I think there's a lot of benefits to having that, like spending less time on your phone and things like that. We kind of relegate like putting the phone in its place. And then it's not because like I hate beauty, because obviously I love the colors and stuff. Everyone does. You get little brushes from seeing it, but then that can hopefully inspire you to go pick up a notebook with some color pencils and draw more or write more or whatever it is you're going to do. And so I think that that's going to be a really good one this year, is I'm going to try to put my phone on grayscale fast from color, I guess, and just see how that goes. So I'm really excited about that slash kind of nervous about that because it does seem like it's going to be hard. First world problems, for sure. And I understand that. So yeah, everyone's gonna have different things they offer up and find really challenging in their everyday life. But this is, I think, partly why Lent is such a good yearly practice, is it is reorienting, reframes things in just such a real way. The third pillar, of course, is generous giving. And what can we give? We have so much. And I think that giving is partly about this, is just recognizing we're holding so much that we could be giving out. And it's this sense of giving builds gratitude, I think. And giving also just definitely it builds joy. So course, you can give time, that this is a very valuable thing. Go volunteer somewhere. And I love volunteering at Feed My Starving Children. Whatever floats your boat. Church, soup kitchens, I don't know where you feel called, but I think that this is a really fun way to give during Lent. Is we all have time, and it is, we for all of us, it's a very precious resource. And so giving of that time is just such a beautiful, beautiful gift to give to someone else. The other thing is talent, especially, we're kind of talking from an artist perspective here, is like we have a lot of talent to give. And it's like, what artistic endeavor can you give? And I have seen people um, draw things like draw murals for like a company during Lent or just give of their talent. And of course, everyone has to make a living. So this is also important. It's also important to think about like how much free stuff do I want to give? But thinking about, is there a cause that you really care about that could benefit from your art, whether that's your stories or your paintings or things like this? Because yeah, like I've said, I've seen artists paint murals for people during Lent, and it's really beautiful. Like it's really fun seeing how that blesses the ministry that they're painting for, but also blesses the artist because they're giving that talent to the to help a greater good. So that's really an exciting idea. And then of course, treasure is a great thing to give if you have resources. And I was thinking of like what would be a great place to give. I mean, I think we all know our world's a little crazy right now. There's a lot of good places to give that we can like there's a lot of good we can do with financial resources, with the money that we have. And I think it's, turning to that prayer and really thinking, where am I called to give? Just give joyfully there and give, generously. Anyways, those are some ideas for how to celebrate Lent and nothing crazy, but I think it's just so good to remember like this is a really special time we have coming up. And I'm really excited for it actually, which is super weird because usually when I was a kid, I was like, Lent, that means no chocolate and it means like no meat on Fridays, which is another old tradition, beautiful tradition, which is to this day one of the hardest ones for me. So yeah, if you've got meatless meal recipes, drop those in the comments for sure. Also, what is your favorite Lenten tradition or one you would like to try next year? Please let me know in the comments as well. Thanks for just sitting and chatting about ordinary life with me. And until Easter, friends, happy fasting.